Hello everybody, welcome to a new video. So here I wanted to speak about the 12 books that I want to read in 2025. I have picked 12 books with the idea that it will be one a month. I obviously read much more than that. Usually I read at least 3 or 4 books a month depending on life and the length of the books, but I picked 12 for this TBR list with the idea that I will have enough space to then add new books along the way that I'm sure I will see, I will buy, I will want to read. So this list will feature fiction books and non-fictions, memoirs that I'm really interested to read, but also books about the natural world. And some of these books will be very recent, they would have been published in the last year or so, and some will be much older than that, but I need to catch up. The first book that I really wanted to check out is The God of the Woods by Liz Moore. So this book I believe came out in 2024 if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, had already a lot of success, everyone's been talking about it, so I'm really interested. I haven't read anything else by this author before, so it would be the first one. I haven't researched too much about it. I have read the blurb, so as far as I understand it's a bit of a thriller. There is this summer camp where a teenager goes missing, and so the thriller, as far as I understand, is the search for this teenager, and most importantly, it isn't the first time that someone has gone missing in this wood. And as the search continues, obviously it starts colliding with the community of blue-collar workers that live in this part of the woods, or at least, near the summer camp. Haven't spoiled anything for myself on purpose, and that's why I don't know much about it, because I really want to go in this book without any expectations, without knowing anything, and see if I will love it. Then I have 3 books that I bought around, I think it was during the Black Friday discounts. So these 3 books, 3 paperbacks, I have had them on my list for the longest time and haven't got to them yet, so 2025 will definitely be the year where I feel this huge blind spot that I have. The first one is Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. Obviously, Kazuo Ishiguro won the Nobel Prize for Literature, and I have read some of his short stories before, which I really loved, but I haven't read his novels yet, and I have had them on my to-be-read list since pretty much he won the prize, if not before. So Never Let Me Go and The Remains of the Day, I think, are the ones that I really want to get to, but this one is the first one that I really want to read. I am so excited. So the story is that there are 3 children, Katie, Ruth and Tommy, who are students in the same boarding school, very exclusive in England, as they do things right then in the English countryside. And they are continuously told by the teacher in the school that they are special, they have some gift. I have no idea what this gift is, so please don't spoiler it for me. But then the story it fast forwards a bit, it's late, they're all adults, and they re-enter each other's life and start thinking back of what made them so special. So this is pretty much the extent I know of this book as well. I am super excited to read it. I think it will be probably one of the first ones that I will read next year. Then the second paperback is Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. It has such a beautiful cover. Look at it. I don't know if you can tell, but it moves with the light. Susanna Clarke is a very beloved author, despite the fact that she really hasn't published a lot. In 2004 she published Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. I've had this book at home because it's one of my brother's favorite books, but I haven't got to it yet. But now that I'm going home for Christmas, I will definitely pick up the copy, and maybe it will also be a 2025 read. Then in 2020, Piranesi came out, her second book, which was also extremely beloved. I know that the world building is amazing, that there is this house basically, where there is an endless number of corridors and rooms. So it is basically like a labyrinth where an entire ocean is imprisoned. So I don't know, I am super excited to read this book. And then the third book that she published in 2024, so that was last year, was The Wood at Midwinter. So I will get through the first two first, and then maybe check out the third one that came out just last year. And then the third paperback, this honestly, it's quite embarrassing that I haven't read it yet. It's Beloved by Toni Morrison. Obviously she won the Pulitzer Prize, which is incredibly prestigious as well. So this is a story about slavery set in the United States, in Ohio. I understand that it's a very kind of intimate retelling of slavery from the perspective of the protagonist, Seth, I think, who was born a slave and eventually escaped. So obviously this is a modern classic. I think most people would have read it by now. I haven't yet, and so I'm gonna definitely catch up with this, and because it's very embarrassing that I haven't read it yet. Then I have the last physical copy that I have is a collection of short stories. So it's the Hidden Light of Objects by Mai Al-Nakib. So this is one of the books that I picked up when I was in Kuwait last year, and I've read the novel, I think it's her only novel by the same author, which was called An Unlasting Home, and it was probably my favorite books of 2024 that I read, even though I read some great books last year, but I think this one was probably number one. It was the story of this woman, Sarah, who's a philosophy professor at Kuwait University, and before she was teaching in the US, and she kind of did her studies in the US, then she comes back, and when she starts teaching Nietzsche to her class, she gets accused by one of her students and then her of blasphemy, and then the entire court case sort of starts. And in the book jumps different timelines because it talks about the history also of her grandmothers who moved between Kuwait and India. And so yeah, it was really a great book. I really loved that one. So I'm excited to read also the short story collection. I love her voice. Short stories for me are very difficult to write. Like, just if a writer is really good at writing novels, it doesn't necessarily mean they're really good at writing short stories as well. But I have big hopes for this one. I read great reviews of this collection, so yes, I will let you know what I think. Okay, this ends the books that I actually have on me, and then I have a list of the other books that I want to read, and here it goes. I want to read The Vegetarian by Han Kang. Obviously, she won in 2024 the Nobel Prize for Literature. The Vegetarian talks about this married couple. It focuses mostly on the woman. Her name is Young E, I'm not sure of the pronunciation, but basically she's tormented by brutal dreams of blood and death, and so she decides to renounce meat, and this is her small act of independence, but it starts to affect her marriage, and here is sort of what the story discusses. I am pescatarian myself. Obviously that's not what I want to read it. I want to read it because it's supposed to be very dark, very intense, very movie. It talks about, in a sort of Kafkian way, about the power of obsession, and this woman struggle to break free. Yeah, so I don't think it's gonna be a light read. Then I lost count of how many books we discussed, but the next book I really want to read, I had this on my TBR list also for quite a few years now, is Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. I was hoping to actually read it this summer, but then that didn't happen, so in 2025 I really want to get to this book. It's quite of a hefty book. I think it's It's about 500 pages. The story is set in the early 1900s. There is this teenage girl called Sunja, who is the beloved daughter of a fisherman. They live on the shores of Korea, and at some point she basically becomes pregnant, but she refuses to marry the father of the baby, who is this very powerful man, as far as I understand. She accepts instead the proposal of another man who was only passing through her hometown on his way to Japan. So basically she relocates to this whole different country quite early on, when the world wasn't so well connected and maybe so globalized as it is now. So it's all the story of her also adjusting to her new life. I'm really excited to read this book. I heard great things again. Then the next book that I want to check it out is called Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. So this book came out a couple of years ago. I think it was around 2022. So it's not super new. So this is the story of a married couple, Miri and Leah, something like that. So basically Miri works in a submarine, and she has just returned to the surface, and her wife Leah is really excited to have her back. And but unfortunately something has changed in her wife. Some of the things she experienced in the vessel down at the bottom of the ocean has changed and has stuck with her even when she returns to the surface. And so this is where the story starts, and I guess their way of working around it. I've never really read much that is set in a submarine, except for maybe 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, but definitely not a modern book. So I'm excited. I don't know how much of this book will actually be set in the submarine, or how much will be on, well, the mainland. And so yeah, let's see. I hope there's gonna be quite a bit, because I'm really interested to see what that would be like, what life under the ocean would be like. So moving to I think the non-fiction part of this list, this memoir, I've had it on my TBR list for at least 5 years, if not more. It's a bit incredible that I haven't read it yet, because I'm really interested in it, and it's Educated by Tara Westover. Basically, the premise of the book is that she has grown up in a Mormon family, and she was homeschooled. I've read quite a bit homeschooling in the US, especially in religious communities. So I think I have an idea of where the book is gonna go, but I'm really excited to hear a first-hand experience. And this book, this memoir, obviously has just raving reviews. It's really considered a magnificent memoir. So yeah, I think this is definitely the year. If the audiobook is narrated by the author, I think I would probably go for that, because I love to listen to memoirs that are narrated by the author. So we're almost there. We only have 3 books left. So the first is Phantoms, The World in the Whale by Rebecca Giggs. So this is obviously a non-fiction. It was published in 2020. I think the premise is that the author encountered a humpback whale stranded on her local beachfront in Australia, and she started from that encounter to wonder about the world of whales and to study whales, talking about the whale songs and how they communicate, and what observing whales can teach us about our relations with the natural world, but also to each other. So I'm really excited. Whales are obviously so fascinating. I don't really know a lot about it. Sometimes I would read books like this. I've read, I think, one that talked about dinosaurs. So yeah, I'm really excited. Obviously it's non-fiction. It's completely different from the other books I mentioned in this list, but I've read it's really captivating and engaging. Then, second to last, it's Orbital by Samantha Harvey. This book came out in 2023, so it's a bit more recent. And while with Our Wives Under the Sea, we were deep in the ocean in a submarine. With this book, we are up in space, because it talks about 6 astronauts who are orbiting around the Earth, and it's supposed to be a love letter to our planet. as seen from space, which I think will give perspective on the problems and the lives that we live down here. And the last one is Playground by Richard Powers, which I actually now realize that it's a novel, so I should have spoken about it in the first part of the video, but it's okay. So Richard Powers has also won the Pulitzer Prize, so again another very decorated writer. And this book, even though it's a novel, I think my mind put it in this section of the video because it still talks a lot about the natural world and about life underwater. So this story brings together 4 characters who seem to be very opposite, very different from each other, but are somehow all connected to water. And they find themselves in French Polynesia, I think, yes, where they are conducting an experiment, which is, and I quote, a plan to send floating autonomous cities out onto the open space. It looks like it's a bit of a sci-fi dystopic read, but instead of exploring the stars and the skies, we are exploring our sea, our body of water here on Earth. I'm really excited to read this book and all the other books in this video. I hope that maybe you got also some good recommendations, and I will definitely update you throughout the year to see how it's going and which books I am falling in love with. Of this list and of more. But yes, thank you so much for watching. I wish you a happy new year, and yeah, see you in the next video. Ciao!